They called her an opportunist. They called her a talentless showgirl. They called her a homewrecker, an intruder, a traitor. For years, she was pointed at as the woman who climbed into the bed of power and shattered a presidential family. But almost nobody wanted to look at the final chapter of her story, the coldest, most uncomfortable one. The one that never made the front pages, where all anyone talked about was luxury, desire, and scandal. February 14th, 2024. While all of Mexico celebrated Valentine's Day, a 78-year-old woman lay dying in the city of Cuernavaca, far from the cameras, far from the film sets, far from the mansion where power, desire, money, and family hatred at once collided. Her real name was Alexandra Akimovich Popovich, but the country knew her as Sasha Montenegro, the showgirl who conquered Mexican cinema and ended up becoming the most inconvenient widow of a former Mexican president. She reportedly died from a stroke triggered by lung cancer she had been carrying in silence. But this is not the story of how she died. This is the story of how a woman who arrived in Mexico in 1969 with a suitcase and a face capable of setting a movie theater on fire ended up trapped in the darkest war inside the Lopez Portillo family. A war where love became a legal document, inheritance became a weapon, and a 122,000 square meter estate stopped being a refuge and became a trap. Today you're going to discover 4 things. First, the secret that began in Seville in 1984, when Sasha met Jose Lopez Portillo, a man 24 years her senior, still carrying the aura of power, still bound to a family that would never accept her. Second, the truth behind La Colina del Perro, the mansion with 4 residences, a library of 30,000 books, and a value that awakened too many ambitions. Third, the documents and testimonies that speak of accusations, lawsuits, missing books, a ranch in Valle de Bravo, and a campaign to destroy her name. And fourth, Sasha's most bitter confession, that the former president left her not a fortune, but problems, lawsuits, and a family determined to erase her. I'll let you know when we reach each one. But first, you need to know where this woman it all started, far from Mexico, far from the marquee lights, far from the gossip columns that would, decades later, turn her into a public symbol of scandal. Bari, Italy. January 20th, 1946. Europe had just come out of the war, like someone leaving a burning building with their clothes still smelling of smoke. Cities had collapsed buildings, incomplete families, names erased from dinner tables, and silences no one knew how to explain. And in the middle of that wounded continent, a girl was born. Her name was Alexandra Akimovich Popovich. She was not yet Sasha Montenegro. She was not yet the star that all of Mexico would watch with both desire and contempt. She was just a girl, born into a family already carrying far too many ghosts. Her family was of Yugoslavian origin, marked by the Iza region of Montenegro, by migration, and by a European history spoken not with pride, but with fear. According to family accounts, some of her relatives had been persecuted during World War II. A family struck by violence, by loss, by the kind of terror that doesn't end when the war ends. It keeps living inside the children. Think about that for a moment. A girl born after the disaster, but growing up breathing the consequences. In the homes of survivors, no one needs to explain too much. Adults speak quietly. They change the subject when children walk into the room. They keep photographs the way you keep wounds. There are names that are never spoken, stories told only once, then buried forever. Alexandra grew up in that world, a world where safety wasn't a right. It was a miracle. And perhaps because of that, from a very young age, Sasha had one fixed idea. She didn't want to get married, didn't want children, didn't want to bring kids into a world that could destroy entire families without asking permission. It wasn't coldness, it was inherited fear. When she was still a baby, her family crossed the ocean searching for somewhere less broken. They landed in South America, first Mendoza, then Buenos Aires. Argentina gave her a new language, a new light, a new way of seeing the world. But it didn't give her a permanent home. Sasha grew up the way the children of exile grow up. Learning that you can live in a country and still feel like a stranger, that you can have a house and still not fully belong anywhere. Then came another absence. Her father died while she was still young, and that left a hole that never fully closed. Because a father's death doesn't just leave an empty chair, it leaves a question. Who protects you now? That question would follow her for years, even when she was famous, even when men applauded her, even when all of Mexico believed that Sasha Montenegro needed no one. In 1969, at age 23, she arrived in Mexico, invited to work in film. Young foreign woman, beautiful, with a face the camera could not ignore, and a story nobody knew. Mexico received her the way it receives many beautiful women, first with fascination, then with judgment. They changed her name. They changed her destiny. And Alexandra began to disappear so that Sasha Montenegro could be born. The 1970s were her territory. Mexican cinema was changing. Bolder, more popular, more daring. Full theaters, provocative posters, producers looking for women who didn't ask permission to exist in front of a camera. Sasha entered that world and dominated it. Belas de Noche, 1975. Muñecas de Medianoche, 1979. Film after film, her name became synonymous with box office success and controversy. But here's what almost nobody chose to see. While Mexico saw a body on screen, Sasha was searching for something far older. Protection. A safe place. A figure capable of building a wall against contempt, against loneliness, against the feeling of never truly belonging. She had fame. She had money. She had beauty. But she didn't have peace. And that hunger for protection was the first step toward the man who would change her life forever. 1984. Seville, Spain. Not a red carpet. Not a film studio. Not a party full of cameras. It was far from Mexico. Far from the headlines. Far from the eyes that had already learned to judge her before hearing her. In the ancient streets of Seville, Sasha Montenegro met the man who would split her life in two. José López Portillo was no ordinary man. He was the former president of Mexico, the same man who had governed the country from 1976 to 1982, the same man who had famously promised to defend the peso like a dog, and ended his term associated with one of the most painful economic crises in Mexican memory. Sasha was 38, he was 62, a 24-year age gap. But the age wasn't the danger was the name, the danger was the history. The danger was that he was still married to Carmen Romano, the former First Lady, the woman who had stood beside him through the years of power, official ceremonies, state dinners, and the rigid silences of a presidential household. And Sasha knew it. But there are encounters that don't enter through reason. In later interviews, she described him as a man who didn't need to be handsome to be commanding, a man whose presence made everyone else lower their voice. For a woman who had grown up fleeing fragility, who had watched the world break a family apart, that man represented something more than desire. He represented protection. He represented stability. He represented everything a child of exile had been searching for, without knowing it. In 1985, a daughter was born, Nabila. And with that birth, the secret could no longer be whispered away. Now it had a face, a name, blood, López Portillo blood. A daughter born of a relationship the country wasn't prepared to face without scandal. The pressure was brutal. The rumors grew. The silences became heavier. The original family watched. The press smelled blood. In 1990, a son was born, Alexander, another child, another bond that couldn't be erased, another reminder that this had not been a passing affair. Now there were two children, two heirs, two living proofs that the former president had built a second family outside the official story. And from that moment on, Sasha stopped being just the inconvenient lover. She became the mother of two children, with a claim to exist inside the López Portillo name. For some within that family, that made her dangerous. In 1991, López Portillo divorced Carmen Romano. After decades of marriage, official photographs, state ceremonies, and family silence, the first family broke publicly. When an ordinary man divorces, a house is divided. When a former president divorces, a dynasty is divided. In 1995, López Portillo and Sasha married civilly. For her, it may have felt like the end of an unbearable weight. For his original family, according to accounts that circulated for years, it felt like an invasion. And here, a name appears that you should keep in your memory: Margarita López Portillo. the president's sister, a woman who had wielded enormous influence over Mexico's cultural institutions during her brother's administration. According to accounts of the era, Margarita viewed Sasha's kind of cinema, the bold, popular, crowd-filled theaters, with disdain. She viewed Sasha not only as the woman who had entered her brother's private life, but as a symbol of everything the cultural elite claimed to reject, even as the public lined up to watch. The same industry that had made Sasha a star could now be used to humiliate her. The same body that gave her fame could be turned into an argument against her. The same popularity that filled theaters could be reframed as vulgarity when she crossed the door of a presidential household. And then there was La Colina del Perro, the Hill of the Dog. It wasn't a house. It was a small country inside Mexico City. Located in the Bosques de las Lomas area of Coajimalpa, the estate covered 122,000 square meters, over 12 hectares. It included 4 independent residences, a swimming pool, gymnasium, stables, an area for firearms, an astronomical observatory, its own electrical substation, and a library of 30,000 books, curated as though those volumes contained the moral justification for an entire fortune. The press had named it La Colina del Perro after López Portillo's infamous phrase, his promise to defend the peso like a dog. The nickname was cruel, precise, and poisonous. Every time someone said that name, they weren't just talking about a mansion. They were talking about crisis, arrogance, lost power, suspicious wealth, and a country that didn't forgive. Inside those walls, Sasha's children grew up, not as tranquil princes, but as children caught between two worlds. Too much López Portillo to be ignored. Too much children of Sasha to be accepted without resistance. Hold that image. 2 children, walking through a giant mansion while outside, the adults argue about honor, money, and family names. Because when the father's health began to fail, a stroke struck him in 1995, the same year they married. The house stopped being a refuge. It became the first battlefield. Attention, because this is where love stops mattering, and every object becomes a prize. First came the library. López Portillo, with Sasha at his side, accused one of his sons from his first marriage of removing nearly 500 valuable books from the collection. It wasn't just a number, it was a signal. The war was no longer in the rumors, it was walking through the corridors of the house. Then came a ranch in Valle de Bravo, reportedly valued in the millions. López Portillo had reportedly attempted to transfer it to Sasha to protect Nabila and Alexander. But from the other side came a revocation of power, contested documents, disputed signatures, legal appeals. In a war of inheritance, one signature can be worth more than a lifetime together. One date can outweigh years of shared history. Sasha began to discover that the name she believed was a shield was also a maze. Every door led to another lawsuit. Every lawsuit demanded money. Every attorney opened a new wound. But the cruelest. War didn't happen only in courtrooms. It happened in the press. There, Sasha stopped being a woman, a mother, or a wife. She became a caricature, an intruder, a symbol of ambition. According to her enemies, she had come to seize what didn't belong to her. She fought back in court, suing for defamation, and won. There were rulings, significant financial verdicts in her favor. But here's the terrible truth. Winning in court doesn't always clean a reputation. Sometimes it only confirms that they already forced you to fight for it. And then came the deepest blow. According to the version Sasha defended for years, the López Portillo family attempted to use the former president himself, by then elderly, weakened, dependent, against her. If they could convince a court that she was an abusive spouse, they could potentially revoke the donation of La Colina del Perro and take everything. It was a demolition strategy, not just to remove her from the marriage, but to remove her from history, to strip her of the house, the legitimacy, the name, and leave her before Mexico as the woman who had come for ambition and stayed out of greed. Sasha responded with a different version. She said the estate wasn't the perfect palace everyone imagined, that when she arrived it was deteriorating, with old curtains and neglected infrastructure. According to her, she invested, restored, and rebuilt life where others saw only land and real estate value. She said López Portillo was not a bad man, but that he was a weak man, surrounded by a family that knew exactly what they needed. Him to sign, say, or allow. And there it is. Perhaps the saddest truth of all. When love ages inside a war of inheritance, no one can tell where a person's will ends and another's pressure begins. Sasha ultimately summarized her inheritance with one bitter statement. Lopez Portillo had not left her a clean fortune. He left her problems. He left her lawsuits. He left her an endless war. February 17th, 2004. Jose Lopez Portillo died at age 83, not as the president who had once promised greatness, not as the man who had walked the halls of Los Pinos surrounded by officials and applause. He died as an elderly, ill man surrounded by legal files, resentments, and a family war that not even his last breath could settle. And here, something changed Sasha Montenegro's fate. The divorce proceedings had not yet been concluded, which meant that, legally, Sasha remained his wife. She was his legitimate